Right then, let's talk about Celtic's newest signing, a name that's been floating around for a while now, but still feels like a bit of a mystery to a lot of fans. Michel-Ange Balikwisha. We got our first proper look at him in that high-pressure derby at Ibrox, a brutal introduction to life in Scottish football, if there ever was one. He didn't exactly set the pitch on fire, but for a debut in that kind of atmosphere, he did all right. Kept it tidy, didn't shy away from the ball, looked like he belonged. But let's be honest, we didn't really learn much from that one game. So who is Balikwisha? What kind of player have Celtic actually signed here? To get a better handle on the guy, we've been digging into his background, and what's clear straight away is that this isn't just some random punt from the Belgian league. This is a player who's been bubbling under for a while now, highly rated since his teens, and who's already shown flashes of top-level quality, even if injuries have occasionally knocked him off his stride. His story starts in Brussels, where both he and his brother William came through the ranks at Anderlecht before eventually finding their way to Standard Liège. Michel broke into the first team at Standard pretty young and immediately turned heads with his technical ability and attacking flair. But just as quickly, his momentum stalled. A couple of injuries here, inconsistent minutes there, and suddenly the early buzz was fading a bit. Then came a bold move, and an unusual one at that. In the summer of 2021, Balikwisha made the decision to tear up his contract and join Royal Antwerp. Now, under Belgian labor laws, players are actually allowed to break their first pro contract, and while it's not something you see all the time, he made use of that rule to start fresh at a club on the rise. Antwerp had been rebuilding themselves into a real force, with serious financial backing and big ambitions. They'd spent 15 years outside the top flight before returning in 2017, and by the time Balikwisha arrived, they were solidly in the top 6 and pushing for honors. And he slotted in well. Under manager Mark van Bommel. Yep, that Van Bommel. Antwerp became an organized, intense side that could really hurt teams going forward. And Balikwisha, usually playing on the left, but also comfortable drifting inside or playing behind the striker, became a key part of that attack. He wasn't just there for the flashy stuff either. He worked hard off the ball, tracked back, and really contributed to the team's shape, which makes him a pretty decent fit for what Brendan Rodgers often demands from his wide players at Celtic. But then, like we've seen too often in his career so far, the injuries returned. Last season in particular was a bit of a stop-start nightmare for him. He spent months out with a thigh issue, didn't really feature before Christmas, and then just when it looked like he was back, he picked up another knock. By the time he was fully fit again, Antwerp were out of form and struggling to finish strong. They ended up 5th in the league and missed out on Europe altogether after a brutal playoff run where they only managed 2 wins in 10 games. Balikwisha, to his credit, still chipped in with 5 goals in the back half of the season, but only managed around 16 appearances total. It wasn't ideal, and that's where things get interesting. See, about a year ago, this was a player rated at around 12 million euros. But with all those missed games, his value dipped, and Celtic were able to land him for just under 7 million. That might sound like a gamble, but it's also a potential bargain, if he can stay fit. Now, let's talk about that fitness record because it's probably the biggest question mark hovering over this whole transfer. This isn't just a one-off injury we're talking about. Throughout his young career, Balikwisha's had recurring muscle problems, hip issues, knee surgery, the lot. In fact, you'd be hard-pressed to find a single season since he turned pro where he hasn't missed at least a month through injury. That's concerning. But here's the flip side. In the rare stretches where he has stayed fit, most notably during Antwerp's double-winning season in 2023, he's been electric. Key goals, creative spark, and consistently one of the first names on the team sheet. He's not the type to sulk or drift through games either. Even when things aren't going his way, he puts in a shift. In terms of style, he's definitely not your classic winger who hugs the touchline and roasts fullbacks with pure pace. That's not really his game. Think more of an intelligent wide forward who likes to cut inside, combine with others, and open up space with quick passing or clever movement. He can shoot, he can pick a pass, and he's got decent feet in tight areas. If you're expecting 10 step-overs and a burst of raw speed down the line, you might be left wanting. But if you want a player who can link up with the number 10, overload the box late, or pull defenders out of shape, then Balikwisha's got the tools. The good news for Celtic is that he's not just locked into that left wing role either. While that's definitely where he's played his best football, He's been used on the right, through the middle, and even occasionally as a makeshift striker when injuries hit Antwerp. It's not his preferred position, but he's versatile and tactically switched on. That could be a big asset for a Celtic squad that already has a bit of a logjam on the left wing, with several players all battling for that same spot. Brendan Rodgers has talked up his ability to play on both flanks, similar to what he said about Sead Haksabanovic when he arrived. And while Balikwisha's natural instinct is to play off the left, he's capable of doing a job elsewhere when needed. There's also the personality side of things to consider, and by all accounts, Celtic have landed themselves a top pro. He was a big presence in the Antwerp dressing room, well-liked by teammates, and known for helping young players break through. Despite still being in his early 20s, he'd already taken on that mentor role with academy lads stepping up to the first team. He had a strong connection with the fans too, proper cult hero stuff after helping the club win their first league title in over 6 decades. That kind of character can go a long way in a league like the Scottish Premiership, where resilience and mentality matter just as much as technical ability. He's also made the decision recently to represent DR Congo at international level, having previously featured for Belgium's under-21s. That means he's likely to be away for the Africa Cup of Nations in the winter, which is something Celtic will need to plan around, but it could be a smart move for his career. The Belgian national team has such a deep talent pool, and Balikwisha was always on the outside looking in. With Congo, he'll likely get more chances to play meaningful games, build his profile further, and maybe even take part in World Cups down the line. That international exposure, especially if he performs well, could eventually increase his market value again. Not a bad bit of business from Celtic's point of view if they're looking long-term. Back to his debut for Celtic then. The Ibrox cauldron is no easy place to make your first appearance. You've got the noise, the pressure, the pace, and he was thrown straight into the mix. Looked a little cautious maybe, played things a bit safe at times, but again, that's understandable. You're not going to expect a new signing to dribble past 3 guys and stick it in the top corner on his first start. What he did show was control, confidence in possession, and a willingness to work hard defensively. The hope is, with a few games under his belt and a better understanding of his teammates, we'll start to see a more assertive, more direct version of him. Because when he's confident and in rhythm, he really can take games by the scruff of the neck. And finally, let's be clear, he's not here just to make up the numbers. This is a player who's been playing at a high level for several years, who's used to European football, and who's shown he can impact games in big moments. He scored in the cup final. He helped his team reach the Champions League. He was instrumental in a title-winning campaign. This isn't a project signing. He's ready now. The question is simply whether he can stay fit, adapt quickly, and find his best form in a new league. If he does, Celtic might have pulled off one of the steals of the summer. Now that we've unpacked the basics of who Balikwisha is and what he brings to the pitch, let's dig a little deeper into what this move could mean for Celtic, not just in terms of squad depth, but tactically, mentally, and even emotionally for the club. Because this isn't just about numbers on a stats sheet. It's about what kind of impact a player like this can have when the games start to really matter. One of the first things to get clear is that Balikwisha isn't your typical flashy winger who goes missing for large stretches of a game. Even when Antwerp were off their game last season, he was one of the few players who kept showing up, kept trying to make things happen. He doesn't disappear when things get scrappy. In fact, he seems to thrive when the tempo's high and the game's on a knife edge. That tells you a lot about his character. Celtic fans love a grafter, someone who puts a shift in, and Balikwisha ticks that box without question. He's not going to leave a full-back with acres of space behind him or jog back after losing possession. You'll see him tracking back, pressing high, fighting for second balls. It's a big part of his identity as a player, not just flair, but fight. That's probably one of the reasons he became such a fan favorite at Antwerp. Not just because of his quality in the final third, but because of how much ground he covered and how much effort he put in. That connection with the fans matters. At Celtic, players who embrace the pressure and buy into the intensity of the crowd tend to thrive. From what we've seen, Balikwisha is that kind of player. He fed off that energy in Belgium, and there's no reason to think he won't do the same in Glasgow once he's settled. Now let's talk about how he actually fits into the current Celtic setup. Rodgers has had some decisions to make this season when it comes to his front line. There's been no shortage of wide options, especially on the left. You've got Maeda, Abada, when fit, and a few others who prefer that flank. So there's been some understandable concern among fans about whether Balikwisha is just another left winger added to the pile. But the difference with him is his adaptability. He's got experience playing across the front line, and crucially, he's got the intelligence to slot into different tactical roles depending on the opponent. Rodgers has spoken in the past about wanting his wide players to be unpredictable, not just hugging the touchline and whipping in crosses, but coming inside, interchanging positions, making those diagonal runs that unsettle defenses. Balikwisha offers exactly that. He's comfortable coming off the line, playing in the half spaces, combining quickly with the striker or the number 10. He's not a one-dimensional winger, and that could be vital in breaking down the low blocks Celtic face almost every week in the Premiership. Too often, teams park the bus against Celtic and invite pressure, and having a player like Balikwisha who can think a step ahead and operate in tight areas could be a real difference maker. Another thing that stands out when you watch him is his composure. He rarely looks rushed or panicked in possession. That calmness on the ball is a huge asset, especially when the margins are fine and every touch matters. Whether he's holding his run to stay onside, drawing a foul in a dangerous area, or slipping a clever pass into the box, there's a sense that he's playing the game with his head up, always thinking, always scanning. That's something that sets him apart from more raw or instinctive wingers. He's measured. He's not just trying to beat his man for the sake of it. He's trying to affect the game in meaningful ways. Now, it's important not to sugarcoat everything. There are still some valid concerns. First and foremost, the injuries. The track record is what it is, and even though he's managed a relatively clean bill of health recently, that history doesn't just vanish overnight. The medical team at Celtic will need to manage his workload carefully, especially in a season where there's the league, domestic cups, and hopefully a European campaign on the cards. He's not someone you can expect to start 50 games a year without risk. But again, when he's fit, he plays. That's the trade-off. The other question is about how quickly he can adapt. It's a new country, a new league, a new set of expectations. Belgian football is no walk in the park. It's physical, it's fast, and it produces some brilliant players. But the Scottish game has its own unique challenges. The pitches are different. The weather's worse. The tackles flying harder. And, crucially, Celtic play under a kind of pressure that not many clubs can replicate. Every draw feels like a defeat. Every mistake is magnified. That takes some adjusting too. But the signs so far are positive. Balikwisha hasn't looked overawed. He's integrated into training, made his debut in the biggest fixture in Scottish football, and handled it with maturity. It wasn't spectacular, but it didn't need to be. The fact that he looked calm and confident in that environment says a lot. The next step is seeing how he performs against different types of teams. The deep-sitting defenses, the away days on plastic pitches, the cold Tuesday night fixtures that don't make the headlines but matter just as much in the title race. That's when we'll see what he's really made of. One thing that might help him settle is the fact that he's used to performing under pressure. Antwerp is a massive club with a demanding fan base. They hadn't won the league in over 60 years before Balikwisha helped lead them to the title. That kind of expectation, that hunger for success, it's not a million miles away from what he'll face at Celtic. He knows what it's like to be judged every week. He's played in derbies. He's scored in big games. He's had to deliver when it counts. And crucially, he's not just been a passenger in those moments. He's been central to the team's success. And that brings us to something that's maybe even more important than tactics or technique: mentality. Balikwisha doesn't strike you as someone who's coming to Celtic to coast or to use the club as a stepping stone. That chat always comes up, especially with players arriving from Belgium, where the path to England is so well-trodden. But everything we've heard and seen from him suggests he's coming here to play, to win, and to be part of something. He had options. He could have waited for a move to the Bundesliga or League One. But he chose Celtic. That says something. At Antwerp, he was a leader. Not the captain, but someone players looked up to. Someone who made things happen on the pitch and set standards off it. Even when he was still young himself, he took on responsibility. That kind of presence will be valuable in a Celtic side that's still got some growing to do. There are big characters in the dressing room, no doubt, but it's never a bad thing to add another voice who's been there, done it, and knows what it takes to win. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel, and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. In the streets of Glasgow this week, the chatter has not been about the next match or the title race, but about the words that slipped from the lips of LIEL ABADA. The young winger, usually quiet and careful when speaking to the press, is now at the center of a storm that could rattle Celtic Park for weeks to come. According to whispers making the rounds, Abada confided to a close contact that the Celtic dressing room is toxic and disunited, a phrase that cuts deep into the very heart of a club famed for its unity, brotherhood, and fight. Though there has been no official confirmation, the supposed remark has spread like wildfire, with fans, pundits, and even former players weighing in on what it might mean for the future of both the player and the squad. If true, the suggestion exposes a fault line that many had only suspected. Celtic, outwardly polished with its long winning tradition, has not been free of tension in recent months. On-pitch disagreements, subtle glances of frustration when a pass goes astray, and muted celebrations after goals have all been noticed by the most watchful supporters. Abada's alleged claim now gives a voice to those suspicions. For a young player to describe the environment in such harsh terms is shocking, yet also telling. It would imply that the divisions are not merely fleeting quarrels, but something deeper, something more corrosive. Hello, fan. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.